Do avoidants come back after a breakup? So maybe your ex pulled away months ago and you've been trying to heal still, taking steps to feel better. Some nights you don't cry yourself to sleep anymore, so you start imagining a life moving forward, but then you can't stop wondering, will they come back? Should I leave the door a little bit open? That's a question we're diving deep into today. What's really happening in the mind of the avoidant after space and after a breakup. And I do have a similar episode on this before as well that is like linking into this one if you want to check it out. But today we're talking really about why do they disappear and under what circumstances might do they return or not. Disclaimer, I'm not a therapist or doctor. This content is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It's not intended to diagnose, treat, or heal any mental health condition. If you're in an abusive relationship or dealing with severe mental health challenges, always seek professional advice. So here's the first thing to understand. The thing isn't just random chaos what the avoidant attachment style does. Avoidants don't just appear for no reason. Their behavior comes from deep subconscious fears about closeness and love, what they've learned based on their upbringing, patterns learned early in life or even reinforced in past relationships where getting close felt very risky and very unsafe. So when they now pull away, it's really about punishing you and really it's about self-protection. And I think this is again something I want to drive home, because if you are in this space and wondering, why do they do this? Why do they do this to me? Why do they do this to people that shouldn't be in a relationship? Why do they discard people? That is something to remember. It's their survival instinct and their survival response. And that's what I've learned through the upbringing because of the environment that I grew up with. It has nothing to do with you. Their triggers is about them and your triggers are about you. Today I want to break down this episode into like 3 stages, what's happening for the avoidant attached person to understand what's happening for them. So stage 1 is really the emotional shutdown phase. This is already happening during the relationship. So this is where it all starts when the avoidant senses their relationship is getting emotionally too close for them. Their brain flags this as a threat. They shut down feelings and pull back and suppress their emotion. And this often starts already slowly after their honeymoon phase, more and more. Usually the anxious attachment then gets triggered as well. The anxious gets closer and wants, more quality time and more physical affection, more physical touch, words of affirmation. And these are all things that avoidant can't provide because that is a fear of them and are used to this from their upbringing. They're getting more triggered, so they pull away more. They're avoiding their emotions. They're avoiding talking about this. They're trying to withdraw, not from the anxious because they don't want to be in a relationship with them, but because it's not safe to experience this for them, especially in this amount, the anxious really needs this. So this is already happening just after the honeymoon stage, more and more. And the more the avoidant withdraws, the more the anxious pulls closer, and then the avoidant withdraws more and more until they're staying stuck in this power struggle phase, and they can stay in this push and pull dynamic for even years until one of them, either the avoidant or the anxious, breaks it off, often more the avoidant. But I can also see how the anxious either detaches slowly or even finds someone else, or even, either way. And you might wonder, were they even happy? Why would they even leave? You might wonder, do they now realize how much they actually want me? Do they realize eventually they actually wanted the relationship? Would they even come back? For them, closeness really triggers the fear, and pulling away is their way of coping. It's not about you. Some examples might be they stop checking in like they used to, even small messages like, hope you're okay. Conversations feel like distant, like they answer slowly. They seem more distracted or dodge emotional topics. So how does this phase actually impact you? It hurts. Let's put it this way. It really sucks. It really hurts. And it triggers your deepest abandonment wound. You overthink. You scroll through old conversations and ask yourself what went wrong, because months ago, maybe years ago, they were really different, right? So you overthink, you scroll through maybe old conversations from months ago, when you were still in the honeymoon phase because they showed up so differently. And you ask yourself, what went wrong? But here's the truth. You didn't cause this. Their shutdown is about their emotional limits, not your worth. And yes, it takes two. No, I think it's really important to self-reflect and see what did you do to also trigger their deactivating strategies, because text two is push and pull is about someone's very activated, like the anxious is very activated, that triggers the deactivating strategies of the avoidant, activates the anxious activation strategies. So it's this push and pull. And all you can do just in future is to work on your activation levels. So if you are activated in your fight and flight energy, in your sympathetic activation status, all you can do is to regulate your energy so you don't show up with all of this anxiety in your relationship. So you actually are not constantly triggering your partner's deactivating strategies. However, your partner is also responsible for their own healing and to see how they can soothe themselves. But it is important to notice that you, as the anxious, are much more aware of everything. You are not numbing your emotions. You are actually the ones who are trying to solve the issue. The avoidant is not even aware of the core wounds, aware of the feelings, because that's exactly their core fear. So they're avoiding everything, shutting everything down. It's much easier for the avoidant to actually do this first step of healing. And that's why so many people always say, why do I have to start the healing process? Why do I have to do the work? Because you can, because you're aware of it. And because if you want to be the creator of your life, you just do it for you. You don't do it for them. And because it just feels so much better to be regulated instead of being activated all the time. That's why. Eventually, you will break up with each other. Either the avoidant breaks up or the anxious breaks up. But in the end, usually there will be a breakup. I guess that's why you're listening. No matter if you manage to break up in the end or if the avoidant broke up with you, this is, happening eventually. This can happen a few months after the honeymoon stage. It can happen years after. Or lots of relationships will stay in this power struggle phase, in this push and pull dynamic for a very, very long time. Usually they're very unhappy more in this stage. So let's talk about stage number 2. And this is more the quiet reassessment stage, I would call it. So after about, I would say usually 6 weeks till 3-4 months of space, a shift can start to happen. Avoidance may begin to feel the pain of being apart that really then outweighs their fear of closeness, because avoidance have numbed their emotions usually so much, and they have avoided their feelings right after the breakup. If it happens, they don't even know what they're feeling. They feel first relief even. That's what I'm talking about in the other previous episode when I'm talking about what happens after a breakup, what happens in the avoidant minds. So first is initial relief, they're avoiding their feeling, they're not even realizing what they're actually, their actual sensations. And thinking, yeah, everything is good. This is exactly what is supposed to happen. I didn't want to be in a relationship anyway. But after a few weeks, can up to even last a few months, eventually the penny will drop. Began to feel, the pain of the breakup and realizing the loss and the grief, and realize, hey, you know what? They're actually missing the connection. They're missing you. And it really sucks because, the anxious is really suffering and feeling already this grief and the unhappiness during the relationship, while the avoidant really doesn't realize it. They realize it way after. And that is the most heartbreaking thing, I think, in this whole thing. They realize it when it's way too late, not just directly after the breakup, but weeks, maybe even months later, depending on how much they've suppressed and numbed their emotions. They noticed what's actually missing, the way you made them feel seen and loved and cared for. There might be subtle cues for this, like they're checking in online, checking your Instagram stories, maybe liking some of your posts or older posts, sending you a subtle picture or more like a funny meme, not like a meaningful picture of the two of you. More something very less emotional, not being vulnerable at all, just to keep up the connection again and keep engaging with you again? Or are they making up a complete different circumstance just to keep in contact with you again, pretending, oh, they've forgotten something in your apartment, or talking about an important event that's coming up. Maybe you have still something in common, like a friend's birthday party where they suddenly show up. I don't know. Maybe they're asking even friends about you, how you doing, something like this. And their subconscious still believes needing someone is dangerous. So their huge core beliefs haven't changed much. So even as they start to miss the connection, fear still dominates. And here I would say space for both of you is actually crucial. For you, for someone who overly depended on someone else, who wasn't able to be alone. So you kind of filled your gap of, feeling unworthy and feeling unlovable with this other person. You outsourced your emotions to the other person. So that's why I think space is actually a very important part of you to this breakup, to learn how to cope with your own needs and emotions. While for the avoidant, it's also important to come back to a place of safety, because only space creates a space of safety for them, so they can then realize, hey, you know what? I really had it good. Because space for both of you can really give you an opportunity to reflect on your both sabotaging behavior, ways how you kept the cycle alive, and what can you do in future to change this. And then there's stage 3, and I would say it's called like, I actually need this person. I want this person. Where the avoidant sometimes realizes, I want you back in my life. And that is not always happening. I want to make sure that depending on what type of avoidant you have been dating, this can happen, but doesn't always happen. Because again, avoidants are all a spectrum, depending on how strong their fears are overpowering, how much they're not back in their comfort zone, and also how anxious were you in the relationship. There's the anxious, that's also a very toxic anxious type who's like extremely possessive, extremely like hypervigilant, blames the avoidant partner for everything. There's actually no freedom, is feeling very trapped. It's no surprise that the avoidant wouldn't feel safe with this kind of person. Not even a secure person would choose this kind of anxious person. But even a secure person would not choose this very extreme avoidant person. So this is the moment really to, again, self-reflect. But if the avoidant person actually realized, you know what, I actually need this person in my life, I actually feel now safe and regulated, I can think clearly again. I realized the grief that came, also to surface right now, because now the numbing has stopped. And they actually realized and can see clearly again through what happened with their missing out. They actually can now see, I want you back and I need you back. And not everything was great in my relationship, but they can at least admit to themselves, something is missing. I want love. I want connection. Actually being alone kind of isn't as amazing as I have always pictured it to be. So they might now see relationships as more safe, a little bit at least, a little bit more predictable and as low pressure. And closeness stops feeling as much of a threat as it used to be, at least. So they might reach out or suggest meeting up, and not just hinting anymore. They say things like, hey, I've realized I'm missing you, how easy it was to talk to you. But these are already very direct things. Often it's still more indirect things, like, trying to bump into you on the way to work or grocery shopping, or just sending you more messages, more like funny messages, or liking things on your social media, commenting underneath your social media, and slowly checking in, hey, is she maybe still interested in me? Is she still dating? Touching on gradually on the topics like, hey, what are you up to? I'm sure you're already dating, right? Like maybe doing sarcastic jokes about how you already moved on, something like this. And sometimes they use like a third party to open up about their feelings instead of directly expressing their feelings. Instead of saying, hey, I miss you, I want you back in my life. And they might say, hey, you know what? Our dog is missing you. Little Steve, I don't know, that's a weird name. Hey, what is the dog's name? Hey, Maya is missing missing you. She really liked being around you actually. So when they talk through a third party, through how their kids feel or their animals or their pets, this is a way of like being less vulnerable. So this is also possible in this stage. I want to highlight here that avoidance rarely just becomes secure or fully secure without actually doing the work. And it's mostly more the anxious type that are doing the work, that are going 100% into therapy and taking initiative and consistently doing the work. I see avoidant who can do the work like therapy, I'm securely attached, more the anxious type. However, I do want to say that if the anxious person is regulating herself and coming then to the relationship from a very grounded place where they've challenged their limiting beliefs and rewritten their stories of people who always leave or I'm not good enough, then this can create a huge ripple effect and impact on the avoidance. Still, it's not your responsibility to change the avoidant or to wait for them to come back, but it can create a huge benefit on that relationship and any nervous system around you. Change doesn't mean the fear has disappeared. I want to highlight this. It means the discomfort of staying closed off becomes bigger than the fear of opening up. And that's what allows a relationship to be more possible. Now I want to talk about even if an avoidance starts to feel safe with you, fear can resurface once the closeness and increased again. So let's talk about this for a second. Their brain may start sending the same thing again to them, that connection is not safe and it's dangerous, especially if the emotional intensity again ramps up. That's why it's important that if you want to make this work, if you want to get the avoidant back to you, that you also take the responsibility and working on your activation levels, on your anxiety, on your limiting beliefs, and filling your own cup first. This gives the relationship a whole new chance and whole strong foundation. Otherwise, this whole push and pull cycle will again happen as it used to before, because often avoidants make all of these promises when they come back or when you threaten to break up, and this might persist for like a month or a few weeks, and then it will all go back into the same pattern. It's important that you, first of all, do your work, focus on your healing, become securely attached in the way you can, focus on yourself, while also having an honest conversation if you take the avoidant back on what you actually wish for yourself on the relationship, on what is important, and also ask in a way of, hey, you know what is making you feel triggered? How can I support you in this? How can we make this work together? And also saying, what's your absolute deal breakers? So focus really calmly and clearly, and focus on your own emotional regulation. Don't rely on them to soothe you or reassure you constantly. Practice grounding and give yourself also space strategically. So when fear starts creeping in, resist chasing your partner. Chase you instead. Give yourself what you need. Imagine the emotion you would feel if your partner would text you back, would reassure you, would be close to you, and give this to yourself first. The more also fulfilled your life is, the less you need them, and the more they just come in addition, and the less the pressure they feel. And really step back, learn to process your emotions, stay present and consistent with your boundaries. And something that can help is also check in with yourself regularly. Right? What do I need? Are my needs met? How can I meet them myself first? And then how can I communicate my needs from a grounded place to my partner? Am I feeling safe? Am I feeling heard? Am I feeling respected? And if not, what needs to change? How can I communicate this that I doesn't come off as a demand? In short, if you really want to make this work again with your avoidant partner, it requires awareness of their fear patterns and your own as well, and consistency in boundaries and self-care. When you combine patience with clear limits, you reduce the risk of falling back into this very exhausting push and pull cycle. And the most important thing you can only do for yourself is focus on you, on your healing journey, and focus less on will he come back, what happens if he comes back, leaving the door always open. Focus on you, fill your cup first, regulate your emotions, and then be really clear of if they come back, under what conditions, how can you make it work as a team, and be realistic with this as well, so you don't fall back into the same patterns. Whether your avoidant ex comes back or not, it's a mix of subconscious fear, the pull of connection in the space you've both had, and time to reflect on this. Your job isn't to fix them, it's to stay grounded, protect your needs, and watch actions, not just words, and be realistic with everything. Ups can really feel like, your worst fears came true, especially if you have an anxious attachment style. But they're also a chance to prove to your nervous system that this person isn't as bad as you've maybe been playing it for years, or a breakup isn't as bad as you planned it in your head for over and over again, right? That being alone is hard at first, but it's just an emotion inside of you, and that you can fill this space with things that you maybe were not able to do within the relationship. I don't know, playing Taylor Swift songs and dancing in your room crazy and putting on weird outfits without being judged for. So ask yourself, do I even want to go back? And under what circumstances do I actually feel safe? Is this an opportunity for me to grow? And what can I learn from my past patterns as well? What parts of me have fueled the push and pull cycle as well? And what realistic needs would I have if I give this another chance? So focus on realistic values, not impossible rules based on fears. And if you like this episode, check out my free resources in the links below, or my mini courses, and check out if you want to work with me one-on-one, either via video calls to really get coached on your anxious attachment style, or on the text and talk support to get coached via WhatsApp or Telegram. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Remember, change in a relationship starts with you, thought by thought, action by action, and now episode by episode. Lots of love. Yula, bye-bye.